What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at a big active period that is expected to start in the next few days. We have some models that we're going to go ahead and show you as well, and we have some other very big things that we need to talk about as well, as more and more tropical waves are expected to come off the coast of Africa, and there is one very strong tropical wave currently over West Central Africa that has a pressure of 996 millibars, according to some of the guys I've been talking to on Storms United. That will be the next big tropical development, as it implies it has a lot of vorticity, as it showed a lot of promise, and we're going to have to talk about that as well as other things down the road. So let's go ahead and jump right into it right here. Here's the satellite imagery that we have right here. We have a tropical wave currently off the southeastern coast of Florida over the Bahamas that we're paying attention to. There's not really that many signs of it developing right now, and I can go ahead and show you part of the reason as to why. There is, from what I understand, a little bit of wind shear over there. Also, there's just not enough vorticity or signs of organization for this thing to really ramp up, and it is expected to be impacting land in the next few days. So that's just stuff we're going to have to keep an eye on. That's stuff we're a little concerned about in terms of mesoscale convection, like thunderstorms, especially over Florida, as we're getting a lot of those starting to initialize. We'll just have to pay attention to it. But in the meantime, in the deep tropics, what we're looking at, there's not very much Sahara dust anymore. I mean, there is a little bit of Sahara dust. That's kind of what the typical late August setup we're seeing, but there's not nearly as much Sahara dust compared to where we were last year or even 2 years ago at this current point. And here's the water vapor imagery. We can go ahead and show you right here. Take a look at this. A lot of the dry air right here, all this continental dry air, that's not Sahara dust or anything. That's just regular dry air. A lot of that is very quickly getting mixed out right now by all this moisture surging from the coast of Africa all over the region. Like, we can go ahead and show you what it looked like 24 hours ago. Let's go ahead and go back to 144 frames. This is what it looked like about 144 frames ago, or about 24 hours ago, at this current point, current point right here at 1:35 p.m. Central Time yesterday. You had a lot of this dry air still really persisting. Look at how it's been surging further and further to the west, and how much dry air has been really mixing out. And this dry air isn't really pushing further to the west or anything like that. It's just getting it's just getting slowly mixed out. I say slowly because it looks slow right here, but it's actually a very rapid situation that we're looking at right here. And what that's going to allow to happen is we're going to see more tropical waves come off the coast of Africa and allow for more and more stuff to really ramp up and develop as we get later into August into September. So that's what we're going to have to pay attention to. Let's go ahead and show you the Eastern Atlantic. This over here is the tropical wave in question I was talking to you about. That's currently over Mali and Mauritania. This tropical wave, it has a pressure of 996 millibars right now as it's surging across Western Africa, expected to enter Senegal in the next few hours, and then surge out into the Atlantic Ocean and potentially organize and develop. There has been some initialization issues with it in terms of some models saying it's going to develop, others saying not really. That's just stuff we're going to have to pay attention to and keep tabs on. But regardless, this is a very large and very powerful tropical wave. And tropical waves like that do not tend to stay quiet for very long, especially this deep into the hurricane season, where it's August 23rd and the tropics climatologically are ramping up across the Atlantic Ocean. And that's just stuff you're going to have to keep close tabs on. I know the Eastern Pacific is very active right now. We can go ahead and show you that right here. This is the Eastern Pacific. We have several tropical systems over there. We can go ahead and give you right here. We have Hurricane Gilma, which is Major Hurricane Gilma in the Central Pacific. We have Tropical Storm Hone over here, and we have another area of interest that's expected to develop in the next 48 hours. So that's kind of what we've been paying attention to. I know that the MJO was over there earlier that month, and that might have contributed to tropical development. But yeah, the Eastern Pacific has been very active as of recent, and I believe that activity is going to start pivoting and allow for more of these Atlantic waves to start organizing and developing as wind shear is expected to calm down in the eastern Atlantic. So that's what we're paying attention to in that regards. Remember, we have this giant tropical wave that we have to pay attention to. We have all this stuff going on. All the dry air is being mixed out. And just it's not even pushing very much to the west at this current point. We can go ahead and even show you that. Here's the water vapor imagery right here. It's been mixing further and further out to the west right here. It's been just going on. Let me go ahead and turn that back to 30 frames. We've just been seeing all of that, and that's ultimately the satellite analysis we can give you right now as we're paying attention to it. We have a tropical wave expected to move off the coast of Africa. We have all this dry air finally being mixed out as hurricane season finally starts to get its act together. We've had 5 named storms, 3 hurricanes, and 1 major hurricane so far, and I fully expect that number to continue to grow. The season is far from over, despite what people in the comments are saying and what some of my guys at Storms United are kind of cracking jokes about a little bit. Nothing against them or anything like that. It's just all in good fun, but yeah. We're going to have some fun with that, and we're going to have to pay attention to all this stuff right here, but we also need to pay attention to several other factors because moist air and vorticity aren't the only factors in this situation of tropical development. Here's the other situations that we have. Very warm water is very key for this hurricane season. I've been screaming about this since October of last year, that because a lot of the water was relatively untapped, especially in the Caribbean Sea, as no system moved into the deep Caribbean, then essentially we'd see a situation where pretty much all that OHC and all that warm water stays there, and then as the time goes on and as water temperatures continue to climb, then we would have a situation where tropical development would be very anticipated, and if it did enter the Caribbean, it would be very explosive. And we saw that earlier with Beryl, which I still fully believe is going to be a tone setter for the rest of the hurricane season, especially with the low wind shear in the Caribbean and other factors that we're going to take a look at in just a second. But that's the water temperatures we're looking at right now across much of the main development region. We're seeing a lot of these areas, especially in the latitude around the Windward Islands, of 30 plus degrees Celsius of water. That's 86 degrees of Fahrenheit of water, ladies and gentlemen. That's more than enough for tropical development. And I know the ocean heat content has been catching up very quickly, but we will get to that in just a second. Here's what we have going on in the western Atlantic right here, the Gulf of Mexico, Atlantic Basin, Caribbean Sea, that area. We still have this 32 plus degrees Celsius water area over here off the coast of Cuba and the Isle of Youth. That's the second biggest island for Cuba right there. We have 31 plus degrees Celsius of waters going on across much of the Gulf of Mexico, especially the western half of the Gulf of Mexico, which is very concerning, especially with just how much over water of this warm water is over there. And I'm even more concerned and even more shocking is that it's not over the loop current right now, but that is a little bit unsurprising, primarily because the loop current has a lot more deep waters associated with it than what we see in the western Western Gulf in that area. But even still, that's a lot of that's not even in the continental shelf just yet. A lot of it's just off the continental shelf, which is kind of that huge drop, the area where it completely drops off, and the waters become a lot more shallower. About, I'd say, 200 to 300 miles off the coast of the Gulf states over here. So that's just stuff I'm kind of paying attention to, I think is kind of interesting. Also seeing 31 plus degrees Celsius waters across much of the Bahamas and off the coast of Florida over here. And it's just going to be a very interesting setup. And we're already seeing those sea surface temperatures recovering from much of Bermuda and those areas right there from Ernesto. And that's just stuff you're going to have to pay attention to. I zoomed in a little bit just to kind of give you a better idea of what I'm looking at. But case in point, that's just the kind of stuff that you need to pay attention to in terms of the water. Let's go ahead and show you the ocean heat content. Here's the latest OHC map right here. The Caribbean Sea continues to show very large amounts of OHC, and that's kind of a lot of it's been what's left over from last year, to be honest with you. And we saw what happened with Beryl going on over there. My concern is, let's say a Central American gyre system starts to develop off the coast of Nicaragua and then starts moving into that water with all the low wind shear and all the water in the world that it has with it, as well as all the moisture and all the vorticity it potentially could carry with it. that could really allow for some very fast tropical development with the ocean heat content we are given right here. And that's why myself and several other weather YouTubers like David Schlotthauer, Weather Center Nazario, Mitch West, all these people have been kind of talking about this in that regard as to, hey, something big might be going on here very shortly. The reason we're making these videos is because we're noticing all these conditions and all these ingredients coming together at a very fast and very alarming rate. It may have been quiet the last few months in retrospect with this hurricane season, but it's about to go off. And that's the kind of stuff that we're paying attention to right here. Let's go ahead and show you the wind shear right here. The wind shear patterns continue to get better and better for hurricane development and tropical cyclone development. The Gulf of Mexico is having a bit of a wind shear problem as well, but that's mainly because there's a trough moving through the Gulf of Mexico. At that one point, it's been kind of just surging out of the deep south and then just kind of expected to persist there for a little while. However, I have been keeping an eye on other charts for areas in the continental United States. There is going to be a high pressure system, a weak high pressure system off the coast of Texas that is going to block a lot of that trough and move that trough out of the Gulf Coast and really allow for the wind shear to recover. I can pull it up on the College of DuPage forecast models right here because I was looking at that a few days ago. Let's go ahead and I'm going to use the North American model with the continental United States. We're going to go ahead and show you the 500 millibar wind speed just to kind of show you where that jet is, and we'll use the 12Z just for context in that regard. We're going to zoom in on this a little bit so that way you guys can see it, and I'm going to move my little camera down here a little bit as well as the screen just kind of to give you an idea of what we're looking at. So that's what we're taking a look at right here. You see this massive jet right here. You see this massive ridge that's kind of building up in the continental United States. What that's ultimately going to do over the next few days is that trough that's currently over here in the Gulf of Mexico, that's going to move it out, and this high pressure system, this weak high pressure system, at least the upper level high right here, is going to allow for that shear to kind of slow down and not be nearly as large as what we were seeing with those values over there. And I just wanted to go ahead and show you that because synoptic level weather events, you have to look at several sectors, and the continental United States is one of them, especially in terms of detailing what wind shear is going to be like in the Gulf of Mexico, because that's where hurricanes have a tendency to really ramp up and organize. So I just wanted to give a quick side note right there and kind of show you what's going to happen with the wind shear, at least in the Gulf of Mexico. In the Caribbean Sea, you're going to have those wind shear patterns continue to fluctuate up and down, but it won't be nearly to as large of a degree as what we were seeing in June, July, early August. And we're also noticing a lot of this wind shear over here is starting to get is getting more and more concentrated and becoming a far less of an issue for tropical development, at least outside of the eastern main development region. So ultimately, all in all, that's a lot of stuff we're going to have to pay attention to in terms of of what we're looking at in the tropics. And we can also go ahead and show you some ensemble runs because things have been getting a little more interesting as of late. We're going to go ahead and start with the European 0Z run right here just to kind of give you a general gist. Here's the European forecast ensembles right here. We have a lot of these weaker systems currently precipitating in the main development region. We're going to go ahead and zoom in on this right here. And ultimately, what we're noticing is, there's not very many of them, but add them up. They're starting to add up more and more right here. We see, at least for this system, how many are we looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. At least 13, 14, or 15 ensemble runs with this area right here, and about 10 with this area right here near the Cabo Verde Islands. So that's interesting stuff to pay attention to. I think the 12Z European is out right here, at least in terms of the ensembles. Yes, they are. Definitely, we're looking at more similar stuff in that regards, but we're also looking at stronger scenarios than what we were looking at previously. Let's go ahead and that's the 0Z right here. Let's go ahead and zoom out and go to the GFS ensembles right here. The GFS 0Z have come out right here. This is the 200. We're going to use the 240-hour map right here just to show you. But yeah, you're starting to see that more and more, and you're also noticing some stuff over here. I want to go ahead and pan your attention to what I'm looking at over here in terms of the Gulf of Mexico. We're seeing more and more of these ensemble runs starting to indicate a Gulf system potentially impacting Texas and Louisiana. Which I will say, I will say that high pressure system, if that ends up happening, will move out of that area in time for that to really be feasible. I will say, and I was kind of talking to you about that, and that's part of the reason I wanted to show you that, because that high pressure system is going to move out of that area by that time, and potentially allow for more of a Texas, northwestern Mexico, or even Louisiana setup to potentially go on there. That's the 0Z right here. Let's go ahead and show you the 12Z right here. 12Z GFS really wants to ramp up the main development region activity right here, and we're seeing a lot more stronger scenarios heading towards the Caribbean Sea, and that's a very concerning thing for me to look at, because that's just because what we're seeing here, we're seeing 998, 999, 1007, 1008, 1009. Just ultimately, we're seeing a lot of more higher quality ensemble runs right here. And we can go ahead and go out a further 2 days to show you how this organizes. Look at this. Long-range ensemble runs are calling for some big tropical development either in the Caribbean Sea, Greater Antilles, or just north of there in the next few days. And this is going into early September, and this is the stuff that myself and my weather friends have been concerned about right here, and we will continue to update you with that. But just for my own sanity, let's see what 336 hours brings out. Yeah, a lot more scenarios of this going on, and just ultimately a lot more of a spaghetti model than what we were seeing previously, where we weren't seeing too much. Now we're seeing a lot, especially with the GFS really ramping up. And we can go ahead and pivot towards the operational runs right here. We're going to pull up the 12Z GFS. First of all, I usually pull the European up, just for context right there. I'm going to pull the 12Z GFS up mainly because I want to see how the operational is doing in comparison to the ensembles. So if that's okay, let's go ahead and do that. Here's the 12Z GFS right here. You see that Bermuda and Azores high starting to ramp up. You have that tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa, that strong one I was talking to you about. The GFS is kind of playing interesting, being a little interesting with it, because some models do want this thing to just surge up to the north and just kind of get killed off near the Cabo Verde Islands by the wind shear and the lack of vorticity and those areas right there. But if we go ahead and go more towards the long term, yeah, you're not seeing really too much with the 12Z operational run, whereas the ensembles, you are seeing a lot more stuff lighting up right here. I just thought I'd show you guys that because I thought it was pretty interesting. And that ultimately also goes to show that the operational models do take a little bit of longer to catch up to the ensembles sometimes. It usually takes about 2 to 3 days to catch up, and that is just one model run from the GFS. So ultimately, that's just stuff that I wanted to go ahead and highlight to you. Just because the operational model doesn't show very much tropical development doesn't mean it's not going to happen, as ensemble runs, as well as all the stuff that we're noticing out in the Atlantic Ocean, as well as a bunch of other factors that I've been keeping an eye on, is showing that there are some signs that it's going to happen very soon, and we'll have to keep a very close eye on that. That's the GFS. I want to go ahead and show you the European as well. We'll use the 0Z Euro because the 12Z operational Euro isn't out yet, but here's the 0Z European, ultimately not showing too much happening in the next 10 days, but as we go ahead and show you with the operational runs right here, we can go, we kind of give you an idea that there might be some things going on in that regard, at least some weak scenarios starting to organize and develop. So that's just stuff to keep very close tabs on. Canadian model, same situation, although the CMC, that is the first model that is indicating tropical development very quickly. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So it starts organizing and developing about 5 days out in the main development region. It moves relatively slow, and it takes its time to get its act together, but by 240 hours out, which is September 2nd, it wants a 999 millibar system just in the MDR with the Bermuda/Azores high over here. There's another high pressure system over here. There's a little bit of a trough over here, so I'm not sure how that's going to influence this tropical storm according to the Canadian model, but we now have our first indication that things are about to ramp up and things are about about to get interesting right here, and that's what I wanted to go ahead and show you with, and that's where I'm going to close this video out with. And with another thing as well, it only takes one storm for it to be an active season. We saw that with Ian. 2022 had 14 named systems. It was relatively average in comparison, but Hurricane Ian took the cake because of its impacts in Florida, because of its impacts in the Carolinas, because of its impacts in Cuba, and that's just stuff I wanted to go ahead and show you. It only takes one storm to cause a lot of problems. We're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. Shout out to Taniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel if you would like to join the Patreon. First link in the description down below. Be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. Link to that is in the end screen. Have a wonderful day, guys. And with that being said, stay safe.